The sound of packing tape has never meant anything to you, probably. To me that morning, it sounded like justice. I stood on the front porch of the house my dad worked his whole life for, watching two movers wrap tape around a cardboard box labeled in thick black marker. SPE Files, 1.2M Dream. My stepmom Carla was standing a few feet away, arms crossed, face blotchy and red, trying so hard not to fall apart in front of everyone. Her son Jason and her daughter Lily hovered behind her, looking angry and embarrassed, like this was all some big misunderstanding that I'd created just to ruin their lives. A sheriff's deputy stood on the top step near me, holding a clipboard and a stack of papers. Calm and detached like this was just another Thursday. On paper it was. Another enforced eviction. Another family drama. But for me, it was the day everything my father promised me finally came true. Carla glared up at me. "Are you happy now, Maya?" She snapped, her voice rough from crying. "You ruined everything. Your father would be ashamed of you." If she had said that a year earlier, those words would have sliced right through me. Back then, every mention of my dad's name could shut me down, make me small and obedient and quiet. But that day, with the court order in my hand and my name on the deed to the house, something was different. I heard my dad's voice in my head, the last deep talk we had before he passed. "No matter what happens, kiddo, this house is your safety net. Don't let anyone take it from you." So I looked straight at her and said, "No, Carla. You ruined everything the day you charged me $800 rent to sleep in my own father's house, and then lied about what he left me." Her mouth opened, ready to spit something back, but the deputy cut in. "Ma'am, we're on a schedule. You still have 45 minutes to move what you can." The movers carried out another box, then another. Each thud as it hit the ground felt like a piece of her control cracking. I watched her kids drag their feet across the front lawn. Jason muttered something about me under his breath. Lily was on her phone, filming little snippets, probably for some "my evil stepsister kicked us out" story. If you'd told me 2 years ago that I would be the one legally forcing my stepmother and her 2 grown kids out of this house, I would have laughed in your face. Back then, I thought the worst thing she could do to me was charge me $800 a month in rent. I had no idea how deep her betrayal really went. I had no idea my dad had already written my name into this house. I had no idea she'd tried to turn his death into her $1.2 million dream. To understand why there were boxes on the lawn and a deputy on my porch, I have to take you back. Back to when my dad was still alive. Back to when Carla pretended to love us. Back to when this house really felt like home. My name is Maya, and this is how my stepmom tried to cash in on my father's life, and how I turned the tables on her. Before Carla, it was always just me and my dad. My mom left when I was 8. No dramatic screaming match, no broken plates, nothing like that. She just left. One day she was there, dropping me off at school, and the next day her side of the closet was empty. Dad tried to explain it in simple words my little brain could handle. "She needed something different," he said quietly. "But I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere." And he didn't. He worked 2 jobs, slept too little, drank way too much cheap coffee, and did his best to be both parents at once. We lived in a tiny apartment for years. He always said, "One day, kiddo, I'm going to get you a real house, with a yard, maybe a tree you can hang a hammock from." When I was 15, he finally did it. I still remember stepping out of the car that first day, looking up at the white 2-story house with its little porch and the big maple tree in the front yard. The place wasn't huge, not like some mansion, but to us, it was a castle. Dad wrapped his arm around my shoulders. "Welcome home," he said softly. "Our home." He walked me through room after room, pointing out where the couch would go, where my desk could sit by the window, where he might put up a TV on the wall. He pointed to the biggest bedroom at the back of the second floor. "That one's mine," he said with a grin. Then he pointed to the one across the hall. "And that one's yours. And when I'm old and annoying, you can shove me in the smallest room and take the whole top floor. Deal?" "Deal," I laughed. He was so proud. Not of the number, not of the value, but of what it meant. Stability. A place no landlord could kick us out of. A place I could always come back to. He said it more than once. "This house is my gift to you when I'm gone. I want you to have something solid. Something I never had." I believed him without any fear that those words would ever be tested. Then Carla came into the picture. He met her when I was 16. She was a customer at the hardware store where he worked part-time. She laughed at his dumb jokes, had bright red lipstick at 10 in the morning, and wore heels even in the middle of the week. She was loud, confident, the kind of woman who filled every room she walked into. At first, I didn't hate her. I wanted Dad to be happy. He was always so tired, always doing things for me. A part of me was relieved that someone else might actually take care of him for once. Carla started coming over for dinner, then more often. She'd bring dessert, a bottle of wine, some new recipe she'd found online. She'd smile at me and say things like, "Oh, Maya, you're so pretty. You're going to break hearts, just like your mama did." And she'd laugh like that was funny. Later, she started bringing up her kids, Jason, who was my age, and Lily, who was 2 years younger. They didn't live with her full-time, but they'd visit on weekends. Jason was glued to his video games. Lily was obsessed with makeup and social media. They weren't friendly, but they weren't cruel either, just indifferent. Within a year, Carla officially moved in. Dad sat me down one night at the kitchen table. He looked nervous, playing with his hands like a teenager. "I asked Carla to marry me," he said. She said yes. I forced a smile even as my stomach twisted with a weird unease I didn't understand. "That's good, Dad. I'm happy if you're happy." "She makes me laugh," he said. "She takes care of me. I want you to give her a chance, okay?" I nodded. "Okay." For a while, things were fine. Not perfect, but fine. Carla would buy me little gifts. A hoodie, a perfume. Sometimes she'd say, "You're like the daughter I never had," even though she literally had a daughter. But slowly, the sweetness started to sour. I'd catch her going through my dad's mail without asking. She'd raise an eyebrow at his bank statements, at insurance envelopes, at anything with numbers on it. One evening, I walked into the kitchen and heard her ask, "How much is your life insurance anyway?" Dad laughed it off. "Enough that you and Maya will be okay if something happens. Don't worry about it." "Enough is not a number," she pressed. "Carla, not now," he said, his tone sharpening. She backed off with a smile, but her eyes gave her away. There was always something calculating there when money came up. Our neighborhood started to change. New cafes appeared. A fancy grocery store opened up. Old houses were being remodeled. People started throwing around the word up and coming. One evening, Carla was hovering over her phone, scrolling. "Did you know houses in this street are going for almost $1 million now?" she said. "Danny, we're sitting on a gold mine." Dad shrugged. "We're not selling." "But imagine," she continued, eyes lighting up. "If we sold this place, took the cash, I could finally open that spa I always talk about. Not some tiny room in the back of a salon, a full luxury spa. Facials, massages, the full experience. My dream. We could invest $1.2 million and turn it into something huge." She laughed, but I could hear that strange sharpness under it. "My $1.2 million dream," she kept calling it. Dad shook his head every time. "This house is for Maya," he'd say. "It's her safety net. I'm not selling it, Carla. End of story." She'd pout and call him stubborn, then change the subject. But I noticed the way her jaw clenched, the way her eyes flicked over the walls, the floors, the windows like she was already counting dollar signs. I wish I could tell you that Dad had years left. He didn't. His heart problem came out of nowhere, at least to me. Maybe he'd felt it before. Maybe he'd ignored it, the way dads do, because there were always bills to pay and lawns to mow. One day he was in the backyard, sweating, laughing, telling me to grab him a soda. A week later, he was in a hospital bed, pale and hooked up to machines. He tried to joke, to downplay it. "It's just a tune-up," he said. "They'll fix me. Don't give me that look, kiddo. I'm not going anywhere." He was wrong. The night the doctor pulled us into a small, cold room and said, "I'm so sorry." I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. Carla collapsed in a storm of tears, screaming his name. People rushed to comfort her. It was all so loud. I was quiet, too quiet. It wasn't real yet. The funeral passed in a blur. Everyone said the same things. He was a good man. He loved you so much. He's in a better place. Carla cried the hardest, clinging to his picture, stumbling around like her legs wouldn't work without him. What no one really noticed was how quickly she took charge of everything afterward. She insisted on handling all the paperwork. "You don't need to be dealing with bills and forms when you're grieving," she said, gently shooing my hands away from the stack of envelopes on his desk. I'll call whoever needs to be called. I'll handle the finances. Your father would have wanted me to. My brain was foggy. I nodded and let her. That was my first mistake. A month passed, then another. I went back to my classes at the community college, started picking up more shifts at the coffee shop where I worked. Dad had always told me, "Don't worry about tuition. I've got a fund for that. You focus on school." So one night, sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop, staring at my online account with this giant red amount due warning on it, I called out, "Carla, did Dad leave something for my tuition? A college fund or something?" She was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone, the TV playing some reality show in the background. She said without looking up. "The college fund," I repeated. "He said he had money saved for me, for school." She sighed, rolled her eyes slightly. "That account was empty, Maya. He used it to cover some debts before he died. Your dad was wonderful, but he was not the best with money." My stomach dropped. "So, there's nothing?" She finally glanced over at me, annoyed, like I was asking for something outrageous. "Maya, you're 19. You can work. You are working. You're not a child. I can't support you and keep this whole house going all by myself." "This is Dad's house," I said quietly. She gave this little bitter laugh. "It was your dad's house," she corrected. "He's gone. The mortgage, the taxes, the utilities, they're all in my name now. The responsibility is on me." She said it like I was some freeloader crashing on her couch. I felt my face heat. "I didn't say you had to support me. I just thought he always said there was a fund for school." "Well, there isn't," she snapped. "I checked. Look, this is the real world. As long as you're living under my roof, you need to contribute." My throat went dry. What does that mean? She closed her phone, sat up straighter, almost like she was settling into a speech she'd rehearsed. "It means," she said slowly, "that starting next month, you'll pay $800 in rent." I blinked at her. I thought I misheard her. "800?" I repeated. She shrugged. "It's cheap. You'd pay more than that to share a place with strangers." I checked. "I'm giving you a good deal because you're family." I laughed. I actually laughed. It came out broken and disbelieving. "Carla, I work part-time at a coffee shop. I barely make that in a month." "Then you need more hours," she replied, her tone hardening. "Or a second job. Or you take a break from school until you can afford it. I can't keep carrying you. I'm not a bank." "Carla, this is my father's house. He always said—" Her expression turned to ice. "Your father said a lot of things he didn't put in writing," she cut in. "I don't see your name on the mortgage. I don't see your name on the deeds, on the bills. Do you?" I swallowed. "No, but—" "Then drop it," she said. "I have done everything I can. You either pay $800 by the first of the month, or you start looking for somewhere else." Jason wandered into the kitchen at that moment, shirtless, holding a gaming controller. "Hey, Mom, can I use your card?" "I want to order food," he said, barely glancing at me. "Sure, baby," she cooed, her entire tone flipping in an instant. She handed over her credit card without a second thought. "Get what you want." He didn't pay rent. He didn't work. He didn't even thank her. I sat there, feeling like I was going to throw up. As soon as I got to my room, I shut the door and slid down against it, ugly sobs ripping out of my chest. I cried for my dad, for the house that suddenly didn't feel like mine, for the crushing feeling that I was alone. Carla was using his death like a tool. She was taking everything he'd promised and twisting it into leverage. I thought about leaving, getting some terrible room in a sketchy neighborhood, or sleeping in my car between classes. But every time I pictured that, I saw my dad's face the day he handed me the keys to this house. "This is for you, kiddo, so you always have a home." I wiped my eyes, opened my banking app, and started figuring out how many extra shifts I'd need just to pay for the privilege of staying in the house my father already paid for. For the next several months, that's exactly what I did. I woke up before sunrise to study. I went to class. I did back-to-back shifts. I came home exhausted, handed Carla $800 on the first of every month, and listened to her tell me I should be grateful she was teaching me responsibility. Meanwhile, her kids lounged around the house, ordering takeout on her card, using up electricity, leaving messes everywhere. And slowly, little things started to not add up. Carla's lifestyle seemed to grow bigger. New furniture showed up in the living room. A giant velvet couch, an enormous ornate mirror, fancy light fixtures. There were big boxes arriving almost every week. Massage tables, salon chairs, beauty machines I couldn't name. Her wardrobe expanded too. Expensive shoes, designer handbags, constant hair and nail appointments. Whenever I stared a little too long, she'd wave her hand. "It's called hard work, Maya," she'd say. "Maybe if you weren't so emotional all the time, you'd understand how to build something for yourself." But I was working hard. I just wasn't building anything. I was barely keeping my head above water. One Sunday, I came home early from work. The house was quiet. Carla had taken Jason and Lily out for brunch. As I walked past my dad's old office, now Carla's home office, I saw the door slightly open. Carla normally kept it shut these days. She claimed it was to keep things organized, but really it was her control center. That's where the mail went. That's where the files were. That's where all the grown-up decisions got made. The door being open felt like a sign. My heart hammered in my chest, but something pushed my feet forward. I slipped inside. The room still carried a faint trace of my dad's cologne under layers of Carla's floral perfume. His old bookshelves lined the walls, half his stuff still there, half replaced by business binders and glossy magazines. His desk sat against the window. It looked different, but my fingers remembered every little scratch on that wood. I walked around it and saw one of the drawers wasn't fully closed. I knew that drawer. When I was a kid, Dad used to keep serious things in it. Insurance papers, bank documents, his will. Carla must have been digging through it and got interrupted. I stood there, frozen, for what felt like a full minute. I knew I shouldn't open it. But another part of me, the part that had been drained by rent and lies, whispered something else. If he said the house was yours, don't you want to know the truth? My hand shook as I pulled the drawer open. Inside was a stack of papers, too neat, too deliberate. Folders, envelopes. One long white envelope with my dad's handwriting on it. Will updated, for Maya. My throat closed. My fingers went numb as I pulled it out and opened it. There, in black and white, was everything Carla said never existed. An updated will, signed by my dad 6 months before he died. Witnessed, stamped. I read line after line with my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. He listed Carla as his wife, yes, but then he got to the house. The primary residence and address is to be transferred solely to my daughter, Maya, last name, upon my passing. My wife, Carla, last name, may reside in the property for up to 12 months following my death, provided she contributes to upkeep and does not mortgage, sell, or otherwise encumber the property. I read it twice, 3 times. Tears blurred my vision. He had put it in writing, exactly like he said he would. He meant for the house to be mine. Carla was supposed to get a year. A single year. That was it. And here I was, nearly a year later, paying my stepmother $800 a month to live in a house I already legally owned. I flipped through the rest of the will with shaking hands. He mentioned a life insurance policy. He mentioned a small investment account. He mentioned a college fund for my daughter to be held in trust and managed by my wife until my daughter reaches the age of 21. He wrote my name over and over again. All of this was meant for me, for my education, for my stability. I hadn't seen a cent. I heard a car door slam outside. Panic shot through me. I carefully stuffed the will back into its envelope, slid it into the drawer, arranged everything exactly the way it had been, and closed it. By the time the front door opened and Carla's voice carried down the hall, I was already in the living room, sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone. "Oh, you're home?" she said, walking in with a shopping bag. "Thought you had work." "Manager cut hours today," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "Perfect," she said. "You can help with the groceries." That night, when everyone was asleep, I slipped back into the office, reopened the drawer, took my phone out, and took clear photos of every single page of that will. Then I put it back exactly where I'd found it. I went outside with my phone in my hand and my whole body shaking and called the one person I trusted enough to ask for help. My Uncle Ben. He was my dad's older brother. They'd fought a lot over the years, but he'd always been there for me. Birthdays, school events. He was the one who stood awkwardly in the back at my choir concerts and shouted, "That's my niece," way too loud. I texted him first. "Uncle Ben, did Dad ever talk to you about a will? Or the house? Please call me when you can, it's important." He called within a minute. "Maya, what's going on?" I took a deep breath and told him everything. About Carla saying there was no will. About her charging me rent. About me finding the updated will with my name on the house. He listened in complete silence. When I was done, he exhaled sharply. "Your dad told me," he said. He told me he changed his will so you'd get the house. He said he talked to his lawyer. He was very clear about it. Carla said there was nothing, I whispered. She said he left me nothing. She said the house is hers now. His voice changed. It dropped into something low and controlled. That's not just wrong, Maya. That's illegal. Your dad's lawyer is a friend of mine. His name is Harris. I'm going to call him first thing tomorrow. Don't say anything to Carla yet. Do you hear me? Act normal. Don't let her know you saw that will. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Okay, I said. Okay. Send me the pictures you took, he said. We're going to fix this. Your dad didn't work 30 years just so some woman could waltz in and steal what he left you. His words lit something in me that had been dying slowly for months. Hope. The next week was the worst game of pretend I've ever played. I still went to school, still went to work, still scrubbed dishes and did laundry. On the first of the month, I still handed Carla $800. She counted it slowly, smiled, and said, "Good, you're learning." On the outside, I kept things calm. On the inside, I was gathering weapons. Uncle Ben called me after meeting with Mr. Harris. "Maya," he said, "you were right to be suspicious." He explained that the updated will I'd photographed was, in fact, the final one. Official. Valid. But that's not the one Carla filed in court after your dad died, he said. She used an older will from before you moved into the house. That one left everything to her, with just a vague line about caring for my daughter. My stomach turned. She pretended the new one didn't exist, I said. It looks that way, he replied carefully. Your dad's lawyer said he called the house, left a message for Carla about the updated will after your father passed. She never returned his calls. Instead, she got a different lawyer and they probated the old will. So, what happens now? I asked. Can we fix it? Yes, he said. We can file to reopen the estate. We can present the updated will to a judge and ask that it be recognized as the controlling document. If that happens, the house legally belongs to you, and she was only ever allowed to stay there for a year. That year is almost up. And the money? I asked, thinking about the life insurance and the college fund. That gets more complicated, he said. We'd need to see where it all went. If she used money that was supposed to be held for you, especially a trust or an education fund, the court can order her to account for every dollar. And if she misused it, he didn't have to finish that sentence. I thought about the boxes of spa equipment, the designer bags, the expensive decor. I thought about all the times she'd said, "Your dad left us in a mess. I had to fix it." Maybe the mess she meant was that he hadn't left everything to her. We met with Mr. Harris a few days later. His office was small and old-fashioned. Wooden shelves filled with thick law books, a heavy desk, soft yellow light. He shook my hand. Your father talked about you all the time, he said. He wanted you to be secure, no matter what. He laid out the two wills on the table. The old one, short and vague. The updated one, clear and detailed. I didn't understand all the legal language, but I understood enough. Dad had changed his mind. He'd taken Carla out of the center and put me there. We went over everything I'd collected. The screenshots of Carla's spa plans, the photos of the equipment invoices, the rent transfers labeled Rent to Carla, a crumpled loan document I'd found in the kitchen trash that showed Carla using the house as collateral for a line of credit. Mr. Harris took notes. You've been paying her $800 a month, he said, to live in a house your father legally left to you, and she's been using the property as if she owns it outright, possibly using its equity to fund a separate business. He shook his head. A judge is not going to like this. We filed the petition to reopen my dad's estate and to recognize the updated will. Within a week, Carla got her first surprise, a letter from Mr. Harris. I was in the kitchen when she came in with the mail. I saw the letterhead and my heart jumped. Harrison Associates, she read out loud. Her face tightened. Why is he contacting me? She opened it. Her eyes flew across the page and her hand began to shake. What is this? She whispered. Then louder, what the hell is this? Jason poked his head in. What's wrong? Nothing, she snapped. Go to your room. He shrugged and left. She turned her full attention on me. Her eyes were sharp and mean. Maya, she said slowly, did you talk to Danny's lawyer? I held her gaze. My heart was pounding, but I'd rehearsed this in my head 100 times. Yes, I said. Why? She hissed. What did you say to him? I told him I found Dad's updated will. I replied. The one that leaves the house to me. The one dated 6 months before he died. The one that says you only get to stay here for a year and you're not allowed to mortgage it. Her face went completely white, then red. You don't know what you're talking about, she snapped. You're just a child playing with things you don't understand. I read it, I said calmly. And now a judge is going to read it too. She slammed her hand on the table so hard, the salt shaker jumped. You ungrateful little brat, she shouted. I've done everything for you since your father died. I put a roof over your head, food on your plate. You charged me $800 a month for that roof, I cut in a house my father already paid for. You told me he left me nothing. You let me think I was a burden while you used his money and this house to build your spa. Her mouth opened and closed like she couldn't decide which lie to throw first. You have no idea how much I've sacrificed, she finally said, voice shaking more with fury than with sadness. Do you know how many bills your father left behind? How many loans? I had to take control. I had to refinance. I had to use the house as collateral, I interrupted. Yeah, I saw the paperwork in the trash. Her eyes flashed with real fear, just for a second. You don't know what you've started, she said in a low, dangerous voice. You're going to regret this. I swallowed hard, but I didn't back down. We'll see, I said softly. I think Dad would have regretted trusting someone who pretended his last wishes never existed. That night, I heard her pacing back and forth in the hallway, whispering harshly into her phone. She found a will. Yes, a new one. I don't know how, I thought it was buried. The lawyer's name is Harris. He's trying to reopen the estate. Yes, the house is part of my business plan. I can't lose it. That girl, she's just a kid. She can't handle that place on her own. There has to be something we can do. But she couldn't stop what was coming. The court date arrived. If you've never been in a courtroom for your own family drama, I hope you never have to be. It's one of the most surreal feelings in the world, sitting there listening to strangers dissect your life and your grief like it's just another case. I sat at the table with Mr. Harris and my Uncle Ben. Across from us, Carla sat with a sharp-faced lawyer in a crisp suit. Carla wore black, like she was at a funeral again. She kept dabbing at her eyes, sighing heavily, glancing at me with this crushed, betrayed expression that would have broken my heart once. Now, it just made me tired. The judge came in. Everyone stood, then sat. Mr. Harris presented the case calmly, step by step. He explained that my dad signed an updated will. He showed the judge the call logs from his office to our house after my father's death. He showed the judge the will itself, with Dad's signature and the witness signatures, clearly dated months after the old one. He read aloud the section about the house, about me, about Carla's limited right to stay for a year as long as she didn't mortgage or sell it. Carla's lawyer tried to spin it. She said that Carla was grieving, that she had no idea there was a newer will, that she simply used the one she found first. Mr. Harris quietly showed that he'd left messages for her about the updated document. He pointed out that the updated will had been sitting in the very desk Carla used every day to manage the estate, in the drawer where she kept everything. Then it was my turn. I walked up to the stand, hands clammy, heart racing. I took a breath and swore to tell the truth. And I did. I told the judge how Carla told me there was no will, how she said my dad left me nothing, how she began charging me $800 a month to stay in the only home I had left, how she spent money on spa equipment and designer things while I worked 2 jobs to keep up with her rent, how I found the updated will in the drawer, how I took pictures, how I reached out for help. Carla's lawyer tried to twist my words. Isn't it true that you're an adult capable of working? She asked. Yes, I said. And I did work. I paid the rent she demanded. But that's not the point. The point is, I shouldn't have been paying rent on a house my father already left to me in his will. Is it possible you misunderstood your stepmother? She pressed. That what you saw as rent, she saw as you helping with bills? If that were true, I replied, she could have been honest. Instead, she explicitly told me, your father left nothing in writing. This house is mine now. My name is on everything. She never once mentioned this updated will. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a lie. Behind her lawyer, Carla started crying harder. I loved this girl like my own, she sobbed. Your Honor, I took her in when her father died. I kept a roof over her head. I taught her how to stand on her own 2 feet, and now she's throwing me out like garbage. Mr. Harris stayed calm. By charging her $800 a month, he said, to sleep in the home her father intended her to inherit. The judge finally held up his hand for silence. "I have heard enough," he said, voice firm. He looked over both wills again. "Mrs. last name," he said to Carla. "The updated will is very clear. It leaves the house to your stepdaughter, with a 1-year right of occupancy for you. There is evidence that the drafting attorney attempted to inform you of this document. It was in the marital home. It was not filed. Instead, an older will more favorable to you was put forward." Carla sniffled. "I was grieving, Your Honor. I was drowning in paperwork. I didn't know—" "I understand grief," the judge said, his tone softening just slightly, then hardening again. "But grief does not excuse ignoring legal documents or depriving a child of her inheritance." He turned his attention to me. "Miss Last Name, you have been paying to remain in a home that, by this court's view, should have been in your name from the date of your father's passing. At the same time, your stepmother has used that property as if it were solely hers, including possibly leveraging it for a business venture." He set the papers down. "Here is my ruling." My entire body tensed. "The court accepts the updated will of Mr. Last Name as the controlling document," he said. "The primary residence at address is to be transferred to his daughter, Maya, last name. Mrs. Last Name will vacate the premises within 60 days. Carla gasped like he'd slapped her. "You can't do this," she cried. "That house is tied to my business. I've invested so much into it. It's part of my $1.2 million spa plan." The judge actually frowned. "Your husband's will did not mention your spa, Mrs. Last Name," he said dryly. "It mentioned his daughter's security. That is the estate's priority." He continued. "As for the financial accounts, life insurance, and any college fund that may have existed, the court orders a full accounting. Mrs. Last Name, you are to provide all bank statements, transaction histories, and documentation of how funds from your late husband's estate were used within 30 days. If it is found that funds earmarked for Miss Last Name were misused, the court will address that separately." Carla's lawyer opened her mouth, then closed it again. Carla looked like the ground had disappeared beneath her. When it was over, the judge banged his gavel. "Court is adjourned." People started to move, stand, gather their things. I just sat there for a second, staring at the wood grain of the table, my heart still pounding, my mind hazy. I'd won. Legally, at least. Uncle Ben squeezed my shoulder. "Your dad would be proud of you," he whispered. I didn't feel proud. Not yet. Mostly, I felt tired. But 60 days later, standing on the porch with that deputy and watching Carla's boxes pile up on the lawn, I felt something else too. Relief. Carla tried every trick during those 60 days. She cried in front of the neighbors. She called relatives and told them I was throwing her onto the street. She banged on my bedroom door at midnight, yelling things like, "You think you're better than me now? And you're nothing without your father." Some relatives called me, scolding. "How could you do this to your stepmother?" they asked. "She just lost her husband." I repeated the same line every time. "I'm just following my dad's will. I'm doing what he asked the court to do." Eviction day came anyway. The deputy arrived, posted the final notice, and stood watch while the movers cleared her stuff out. That's when you saw me, on that porch, with the tape, the boxes, and Carla's eyes burning holes in me. She stalked over with a box in her arms, pushed it into Jason's hands, and got right up in my face. "You're a monster," she spat. "I hope this house falls down on you. You think this makes you strong? You think this is what your daddy wanted?" I was shaking, but not from fear this time. "You used his death to fund your dream," I said quietly. "You lied to me. You hid his will. You made me feel like a burden while you drained everything he left. I'm not the monster here, Carla." "That man left me with nothing," she snapped. "You act like he was some kind of saint. He was careless with money. I had to clean up his mess. You have no idea what I've sacrificed." "You sacrificed my college fund," I said. "You sacrificed my security for spa chairs and salon lights. The judge saw it. I see it. Maybe one day you will too." She looked like she might actually slap me. The deputy stepped closer. "Ma'am, I need you to keep your distance." She tore her eyes away from me and turned on him instead. "Are we done?" she snapped. "You have 15 minutes left to remove personal items," he said evenly. "After that, anything left stays with the property or goes to the curb." She stomped off, cursing under her breath. At one point, a strong gust of wind lifted some papers out of that spay files 1.2M Dream box, and scattered them over the yard. A glossy mock-up of her future spa logo slid to a stop at my feet. Under the image, it said in cursive, "Funded by strength, sacrifice, and starting over." I almost laughed. The only person who had really sacrificed here was my father, and me. Finally, the deputy checked his watch and nodded. "Time," he said. "Mom, what about my stuff?" Lily wailed. "My vanity, my lights." "You'll get it later," Carla snapped. "Just get in the car." She turned to me one last time. Her voice lowered, full of venom. "Without your father, you are nothing, Maya," she said. "Remember that. This house won't fix you. You'll always be that little girl he had to take care of." The words hit something inside me, but they didn't sink in the way she wanted them to. Because the truth was, I had taken care of myself for months. I'd survived her rent, her control, her lies. I was the one who had gone to court, stood in front of a judge, and fought for what was right. "I guess we'll see," I said quietly. "Right now, I'm the one still standing in his home, and you're the one leaving it." For a moment, our eyes locked. Then she broke away, climbed into her car, slammed the door, and drove off without even looking back at the house. The moving truck followed. The street grew quiet again. The deputy handed me back the paperwork. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked softly. "Yeah," I said, exhaling slowly. "I think so." He gave me a nod. "Make your dad proud," he said, and left. I walked back into the house. For the first time since my dad died, it was peaceful. No blasting TV, no arguments, no harsh footsteps on the stairs, no stranger's voice criticizing everything I did. Just the creaks of the floorboards and the hum of the fridge and the distant sound of a lawnmower down the street. I wandered from room to room like I was seeing it for the first time. The living room where Dad and I used to watch bad movies. The kitchen where he burned pancakes every Sunday morning and pretended he meant to. The hallway where our family photos still hung in mismatched frames. I ended up in his old office. The desk was there, mostly empty. Carla had taken her binders, but she'd missed one tiny thing. In the top drawer, pushed to the back, was a small framed photo. It was me and Dad on the day we bought the house. I was 15, sweaty with paint on my cheek. He had his arm around my shoulder, holding the new house keys up to the camera like a trophy. We were both grinning like fools. I turned the frame over. On the back, in his messy handwriting, he'd written, "First day in our forever home." I sat down in his chair and finally let myself cry. Not out of anger, not out of fear, just release. It took months to sort out the financial stuff. The court found that a lot of the life insurance had been spent. Deposits on spa equipment and rent for a location she never fully secured. Some of that money was completely gone. The college fund my dad mentioned was empty. The judge ordered Carla to repay what she could over time and forced her to return every dollar of rent I'd paid her, with interest. It wasn't life-changing money, but it felt symbolic. Like the universe admitting, yeah, that part was especially wrong. The biggest thing, though, was the house. It was officially in my name. Paid off thanks to a smaller piece of the life insurance that had been properly handled. I couldn't afford the property taxes on my own, so I did something Carla never would have done. I opened 2 of the spare bedrooms and rented them out to other college students. I sat down with them, explained the bills, set a fair price. I made sure everything was clear and in writing. No surprises, no manipulation. We shared the kitchen. We cleaned up after ourselves. On Friday nights, we sometimes sat on the porch and talked about life. The house felt alive again. I went back to school full-time, using the refunded rent and some small scholarships I'd scraped together to keep going. It was still hard. I still had to work. I still had nights where I lay awake, doing math in my head about money and time and how long everything would last. But I wasn't working myself to death just to hand my paycheck to a woman who saw me as an obstacle. I was working for me. Sometimes I think about Carla. I heard through a distant relative that her spa never opened, that investors backed out when they heard about the court ruling, that she had to sell off a lot of the equipment she'd bought and move into a much smaller place. She never called me, never apologized, never tried to make things right. In a way, that silence told me everything I needed to know. People love revenge stories. They love that dramatic moment, the villain's shocked face, the karma, the "this is what you get" scene. And yes, there was a dark, satisfying part of me that enjoyed seeing her $1.2 million dream collapse under the weight of my father's actual wishes. But revenge isn't as simple as people think. It takes a toll. You lie awake at night wondering if you're being cruel, even when you know, deep down, that you're just taking back what was always supposed to be yours. You feel guilty, even when the other person never did. You think about the collateral damage, Jason and Lily, who had to leave behind a lifestyle they'd gotten comfortable in, even though they never lifted a finger to earn it. Here's what I learned, though. What I did wasn't some wild revenge plot. It was just telling the truth and refusing to be silent about it. Carla built a story where she was the selfless, suffering stepmother, and I was the spoiled, ungrateful girl. She told that story to everyone, family, friends, herself. She expected me to accept it because I was younger, and I was grieving. But grief does not mean you have to let people walk all over you. Family does not mean you have to accept lies. Love for someone who's gone does not mean you have to tolerate abuse from the ones they left behind. My dad gave me this house for a reason. Maybe a part of him knew, really knew, that he might not always be around to protect me. Maybe a part of him saw things in Carla that I was too young to see. Maybe that's why he updated his will when he did. He left me a home, and Carla tried to turn that home into cash. So, yes, the day the boxes hit the lawn and the deputy handed me the final paperwork, it felt like revenge. But now, when I close my eyes and think of that day, I don't just see Carla's shocked face. I see my dad standing in the driveway years before, holding up the house keys, grinning, saying, "This is for you, kiddo, so you'll always have somewhere to land." I think of locking the front door at night and feeling safe instead of guilty. I think of paying my property taxes and grumbling, then smiling, because this annoying bill means I have something worth paying for. I think of the photo on his desk, first day in our forever home, and I realize something. Revenge, for me, wasn't about destroying Carla. It was about restoring what my father wanted. It was about choosing his truth over her lies. It was about making sure that his forever home promise didn't die with him. So, if you're listening to this, and you're in a situation where someone is using grief or family or respect to keep you quiet while they take from you, remember this. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to look in drawers. You're allowed to talk to lawyers. You're allowed to take people to court if they use your love and your loss as an opening to steal from you. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't shouting or screaming or slamming a door in someone's face. Sometimes it's just signing your name where it was always supposed to be. Sometimes it's just walking through your own front door, knowing you finally, truly belong there. My name is Maya. My stepmother charged me $800 rent to live in my dead father's house. So I turned the tables, took back his $1.2 million dream from her hands, and made it my reality instead. And if there's a moral to my story, it's this. Greed can build a dream on someone else's foundation. But the truth always comes with a wrecking crew.